My name is Sarah Jenkins. I'm 32 years old, and I'm a senior project manager at Viridian Solutions. It was a Tuesday, just after 1 p.m., and I was about to finally eat the sad, pre-packed turkey wrap I'd brought from home. I was hunched over my keyboard, trying to finish a report Brenda, my boss, had sprung on me an hour before it was due, when I heard the elevator doors ding. Standing there, looking utterly lost in our usually bustling but now strangely quiet floor, was Thorne, our CEO. He was a legend, a ghost, rarely seen below the executive suite. He looked pale, almost green. He clutched his stomach. "Sarah," he rasped, his voice barely a whisper, do you have anything to eat?" I skipped breakfast and lunch, and my blood sugar just plummeted. My heart hammered. This was Thorne, the man who built Viridian from a startup. He looked vulnerable, frail. My mind screamed, "No, that's your lunch, your only break." But my mouth, without conscious thought, said, "Here, Mr. Thorne. Take it. Please." I pushed my turkey wrap, still in its plastic container, across my desk. He took it, his hand trembling slightly. I watched him tear into it like a man starved, and a strange, defiant hope bloomed in my chest. He didn't know it, but that simple turkey wrap was about to expose the rot Brenda Hayes had been cultivating for years. Brenda Hayes had been my boss for almost 5 years. When I first joined Viridian, she was the picture of a strong, ambitious leader. She had this way of making you feel like you were part of something special, always talking about synergy and leveraging our collective genius. Her office had a large whiteboard covered in colorful, hand-drawn motivational quotes, like innovation through collaboration or excellence is a habit. It made her seem approachable, inspiring. But over time, the cracks started to show. Collaboration meant she took credit for your ideas. Innovation meant you worked weekends on her last-minute changes. She was a master of subtle manipulation. She'd praise you in private, then subtly undermine you in public emails, CCing senior management about minor adjustments she had to make to your otherwise excellent work. She micromanaged every detail, yet managed to appear hands-off to her superiors, presenting herself as a strategic visionary while we, her team, handled the grunt work and the impossible deadlines. I stayed because the projects themselves were genuinely exciting, cutting-edge software development. And honestly, the pay was good. I also believed, naively, that if I just worked harder, if I delivered perfectly every time, Brenda would eventually see my worth and stop her games. I tried to manage her, to anticipate her moves, to keep meticulous records of my work. It felt like walking a tightrope every single day. My first major realization of Brenda's true nature came during Project Aurora, a huge client-facing platform. I led the development, poured my soul into it for 9 months. We launched it flawlessly, ahead of schedule. The client was ecstatic. Brenda, of course, presented the success to Thorne and the board as a testament to her strategic oversight and decisive leadership. I saw it in the company newsletter, a photo of her shaking the client's hand, a quote about her vision. My name wasn't mentioned. Not even my team's. It was a punch to the gut. What I didn't understand yet was how deeply this pattern of credit stealing went, and how it was ultimately hurting the company. A few months later, during my annual performance review, Brenda gave me a meets expectations rating. This was despite me consistently exceeding every metric, bringing in new efficiencies, and mentoring junior staff. When I asked for specifics, she vaguely cited communication challenges and a need for more proactive engagement with her. It was a direct retaliation. Earlier that quarter, I'd gently pushed back on her decision to cut the budget for a crucial testing phase, which would have compromised the project's integrity. I'd presented data, facts. She'd smiled, nodded, then cut it anyway. And now, this. It was a clear message, question Brenda, and you pay a price. The workload became unbearable. Brenda would assign 3 urgent projects simultaneously, each with an impossible deadline, then disappear for days, only to resurface with last-minute changes that undid weeks of work. My team was burning out. People were quietly leaving. I tried to go through official channels. I scheduled a meeting with HR, outlining the excessive overtime, the unrealistic demands, and the lack of support. Brenda, somehow, got wind of it. She sat in on the HR meeting, ostensibly as support. She framed my concerns as my inability to manage my team or my personal stress, rather than a systemic issue she created. HR, intimidated by Brenda's presence and her polished narrative, suggested I attend a stress management workshop. It was a dead end. That detail mattered later. The morning of the CEO encounter, Brenda had been particularly brutal. She'd emailed at 6 a.m. with a critical update for a project due that afternoon, requiring a complete overhaul of the presentation. Then, at 9 a.m., she demanded a quick analysis of competitor data, overriding my existing task list. By 12:30 p.m., she'd added a third, drop everything request for a meeting summary she needed in an hour. My head was spinning. I hadn't even had time to stand up, let alone grab a real lunch. My stomach was growling, a dull ache that usually meant I was running on fumes. I just wanted 5 minutes, a quiet moment with my turkey wrap, before diving back into the chaos. That's when Marcus Thorne appeared. As I watched Marcus Thorne devour my humble turkey wrap, a wave of clarity washed over me. It wasn't just my career Brenda was suffocating, it was the entire department. Her constant need for control, her credit stealing, her fear of being challenged, it wasn't just petty office politics. It was actively damaging projects, driving away talent, and creating a culture of fear. She was a master at presenting a perfect facade to upper management while the foundation crumbled beneath her. I realized that my meticulous documentation, my quiet resilience, wasn't enough. I needed someone with real power to see past the illusion. Marcus finished the wrap, looking much better. He even managed a small smile. "Sarah, thank you. You have no idea how much I needed that." He leaned back in his chair, looking around the deserted floor. "Why is everyone gone? Is it always this quiet at lunch?" "Most of the team is working through lunch, Mr. Thorne," I said, choosing my words carefully. "We have a few critical deadlines today." I didn't mention Brenda, not directly. He nodded slowly. "I see. And what are you working on?" I explained the project, the tight turnaround Brenda had imposed, the need for the quick analysis. I mentioned the Aurora project, how proud I was of its success, and how my team had overcome significant hurdles to deliver it. He listened intently, asking specific questions about timelines, resources, and the scope changes. He asked about my performance review, about the communication issues. I explained how I'd tried to address them, how I'd even gone to HR about workload management, only to be advised on stress reduction. I didn't complain, I just stated facts, dates, and the outcomes. I talked about the team morale, how we were losing good people. I mentioned my colleague, David, who had resigned last month, citing unmanageable workload in his exit interview. I knew Marcus Thorne, the CEO, would have access to those reports. He didn't say much, just kept nodding, his gaze sharp and thoughtful. He asked if I had any notes or project plans I could share from Aurora. I told him I had meticulous records, including all original project specs and change orders, saved on my personal drive as a backup. Just in case, I added, a small, knowing smile on my face. The very next day, things started to shift. I received an email from Marcus Thorne's executive assistant, requesting copies of my Aurora project documentation, including all original change requests and timeline adjustments. I sent them over immediately. Then, I heard whispers. Marcus Thorne was seen having a long, closed-door meeting with Brenda and the head of HR. The meeting lasted for hours. No one knew what was happening, but the tension was palpable. Brenda's office door remained shut. Later that afternoon, I was called into HR. To my surprise, Marcus Thorne was there, along with the head of HR, Maria Sanchez. "Sarah," Marcus began, his voice calm but firm, "thank you for your honesty yesterday. And for your lunch. He gestured to Maria. We've been conducting a thorough review based on your insights and some other concerns that have recently come to light. Maria spoke. Sarah, we've reviewed your performance records, your team's project deliverables, and internal feedback, including exit interviews. The discrepancies between your actual performance and Brenda's assessments are significant. We've also found a pattern of project delays and cost overruns in Brenda's department that she's consistently attributed to unforeseen challenges or team underperformance, but which, with your documentation, we can now trace directly to her last-minute, often arbitrary, interventions. Marcus looked directly at me. Brenda Hayes has been systematically taking credit for her team's successes and deflecting blame for her own mismanagement. She's created an environment where talented people are either burning out or leaving. This isn't just a toxic boss issue, Sarah. It's impacting our bottom line, our client relationships, and our company culture. He paused. We confronted Brenda this morning with the evidence. She initially denied everything, then tried to blame you and other team members for misunderstanding her directives. But the facts, the timelines, the emails you provided, and the consistent pattern from other sources, including David's exit interview, were undeniable. She couldn't explain away the budget cuts she made to your testing phase on Aurora, or the fact that she presented the launch as her sole achievement when your name was nowhere to be found. So, what does this mean? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. It means, Marcus said, that Brenda Hayes is no longer an effective leader at Viridian Solutions. She's been placed on administrative leave, effective immediately, pending her formal resignation. We will be announcing her departure by the end of the week. He exposed her. Not with a public spectacle, but with a quiet, devastating presentation of facts that stripped away her carefully constructed illusion of competence. It was more powerful than any shouting match. The announcement came 2 days later, a carefully worded email from HR about Brenda pursuing other opportunities. The relief that swept through the department was almost tangible. It was like a collective exhale. People started talking more openly, sharing ideas without fear. Marcus Thorne called me into his office the following week. He told me they were restructuring the department. He offered me Brenda's position, Director of Project Management, with a significant raise and the mandate to rebuild the team and foster a healthier, more collaborative environment. It was a huge leap, one I hadn't dared to dream of. I accepted, of course. One of my first acts as director was to bring David back. He was hesitant at first, but when I explained the changes, the new mandate, and the reason for Brenda's departure, he agreed to return, bringing his invaluable expertise back to Viridian. We started implementing clearer project guidelines, fair workload distribution, and, crucially, a system for transparent credit attribution. The team's morale soared. Productivity improved dramatically. It wasn't an overnight fix. There was still a lingering sense of caution, an ingrained habit of looking over one's shoulder. But the air was clearer. The fear was gone. Months later, I walked past what used to be Brenda's office. The door was open, and the room was being prepped for a new hire. The large whiteboard, once covered in Brenda's colorful, empty motivational slogans like "Excellence is a habit," had been wiped clean. It was stark white, waiting for new ideas, new plans. It looked ready for collaboration, for genuine innovation. And I knew, truly knew, that sometimes, the smallest act of generosity can expose the biggest lies.